Thank you for joining us for this look at some of the best stories from KPBS News. I'm Maya Trabulsi. As we wrap up a busy week for politics, this week we're taking a look at some of our best political reporting from 2024. Coming up, preserving cross-border art. Historians tell us why saving pieces of the replaced border wall is important for understanding the binational experience. The green promise of Imperial County. We go to an often overlooked part of California that's getting more attention as the state looks for alternative energy sources. And a lawsuit over public comment at public meetings. It's part of the ongoing issues with civility and decorum that emerged during the pandemic. And that is where we start. Investigative reporter Amita Sharma has covered this issue extensively, particularly at the San Diego County Board of Supervisors. She recently talked to those who are involved in that lawsuit, which challenges efforts to control the public comment process. But first, here is some of the backstory on how the situation has grown heated in recent years.
There was a time when people addressed the Board of Supervisors with politeness.
Good morning. My name is Doug Winch. I live in the Hidden Meadows area. The two issues I wanted to touch on was fire safety and jobs, and those have already been done, so I'd just like to encourage you to vote yes on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Then the pandemic hit, and civility, by some, took a dive.
Good afternoon, Board of Tyrants.
Language, tone, even lucidity slid.
Hail Fauci! Hail Fauci! Hail Fauci!
The pandemic has left us with an unaddressed case of national PTSD. It scared the bejesus out of people.
Political scientist Carl Luna is director of the local Institute for Civic Engagement in San Diego. His analysis is backed up by KPBS's own review of supervisors' meetings. KPBS watched the public comment sections from a sample of meetings from 2009 to 2023 and found a clear trend. Sure enough, the tide turned a year into the pandemic. Vaccines were a trigger.
Or just more time trying to save the people in the county and not murder them with these shots.
In 2009, there were 2 incidents of incivility at the supervisors' meetings. Last year, 167, mostly committed by the same small group of commenters. The offenses included conspiracies and threats.
So what are you doing to actually stop human trafficking? Nothing, because you are a part of it? Maybe.
$20,000 to continue coordinated vaccine clinics. I'd like to call those murder or genocide clinics.
You're felons. I mean, you will be. But, you should be taken to Gitmo.
Vargas, I can't wait for your arteries to clog. They're not doing it fast enough. And Nathan, you should kill yourself. I don't know where you are.
The profane.
You didn't give a shit about what we have to say. You guys are in big trouble because you have a power trip issue. Do you like being a cunt?
And racism.
Wuen's not here, but the blackest thing about her is her heart.
There are a lot of comments that are quite anti-Semitic, and it's very troubling.
Supervisor Tara Lawson-Reimers says those comments cut her differently.
As a member of the Jewish community, my feelings are hurt. I feel afraid for people in our community.
She partly blames the nastiness at meetings on former President Donald Trump and his comments about race and women dating back to his first run for president in 2016.
So there was a shift, I think, that allowed a normalization of discourse and toxicity that we're all grappling with now.
Luna says a subtler shift began more than 15 years ago as a backlash to the election of Barack Obama as the first black president. The high cost of living has only worsened the vitriol. UCSD political scientist Thad Kauser says a loss of faith in public institutions, COVID vaccine mandates, and forced business closures intensified the divide.
All of those things drive people's anger, and in a context when they don't feel like they have anything in common with the other side.
All amplified by social media. Local public government meetings have typically been the bedrock of democracy, where hyper-local issues are discussed and immune to partisanship.
One of the reasons that
local debates and local politics survived polarization longer is that we had thicker and stronger connections to our neighbors, and we had a lot of trust that we built up, but that trust isn't free. It's being eroded.
Kroc Institute for Peace and Justice research manager John Porton says there are other forces at work, outside organizations determined to divide.
And we can see that there are groups organizing in Southern California whose reason for existence is to mobilize people to go to a series of public meetings and to bring up these policy preferences that they have.
San Diego psychologist David Peters says what we're really seeing at these meetings are scared people.
And in our spaces, people are converting the fear into anger so as to feel powerful.
Tomorrow, we'll examine the effect of that rage. Amita Sharma, KPBS News. As head of the nonprofit Project for Open Government, which states its mission is government accountability, Matt Wallstrom has attended San Diego County Supervisors meetings. He's well aware of the nastiness spewed by some members of the public towards supervisors and staff. Comments like these.
Your conduct is disrupting the proceedings of this meeting. You can go too.
You're killing people!
Do you like being a cunt?
And Wallstrom is turned off.
I don't agree with definitely the reprehensible and just repugnant comments by people at times.
Supervisors immediately sought to limit the barbs and interruptions by imposing new rules on public comments in November 2022, after San Diegan Jason Robo referred to then County Public Health Officer Dr. Wilma Wooten, who's Black, this way.
And then Wooten, you're Aunt Jemima.
But Wallstrom says the supervisor's fix went too far. He's suing the county on grounds that it is now trampling on the free speech rights of commenters, no matter how profane or degrading they are.
Some people think that that's the only way that they're going to get across. And again, I may not agree with it, but so long as it does not cross that line, that bright constitutional line, it needs to be allowed.
One change allows the chairperson of the board to reprimand a member of the public if their statements are deemed discriminatory or harassing, and even have a sheriff's deputy remove the person.
The problem is with the definition of discriminatory or harassing remarks.
Lawyer Corey Briggs represents Project for Open Government in its lawsuit against the county. He frequently sues local governments.
You are allowed to be critical of public officials and public employees. We are allowed to criticize the government. We can criticize the government strongly. This definition now allows one person, the chair of the board, to decide that he or she doesn't like the comments that are being made. And even if they're legally protected under this definition, can say stop.
The county did not respond to requests for comment, but its document highlighting the changes does indeed define discriminatory or harassing remarks as legally protected speech that disparages an individual or group based on their perceived race, religion, sexual orientation, ethnicity, gender, disability, or other hate speech, but does not rise to the level of a criminal threat or inciting violence.
What the Board of Supervisors can do is make sure there's no disruption of the meeting, that no one has the right to shout out during the meeting. Anybody who shouts out can be removed, can be barred from coming back. And the city council can limit the public comment time that it wants. If the public comment is getting out of hand, they can certainly limit the amount of time that they're going to devote to public comments.
Constitutional scholar and UC Berkeley Law School Dean Erwin Chemerinsky has advised local governments on managing nasty public comments, but he is not involved in this lawsuit.
But the difficulty is that they can't say, we're going to have a civility code for how to speak. They can't say no profanities. They can't say no ethnic or racial slurs. because that's protected by the First Amendment.
David Loy of the First Amendment Coalition, who also isn't a part of the lawsuit, says those constitutional protections ensure that the government can't crack down on dissenters.
This is why we have a First Amendment, to ensure that we do not allow the government to censor people based on their viewpoint. And sometimes the price we pay for that is that we have to tolerate speech that we don't like.
Briggs says the case challenging the county's rule change governing comments at supervisors' meetings could go to trial later this year. Amitha Sharma, KPBS News.
And Amitha Sharma has done extensive coverage on this topic and the issues surrounding democracy in our region. You can find more of her reporting at kpbs.org. California has ambitious goals to transition away from fossil fuels, and part of reaching that goal lies in Imperial County, east of San Diego. But there is skepticism in the community after past promises of development failed to bring prosperity to the area. KPBS Imperial Valley reporter Corey Suzuki wondered, what would it take for things to be different this time around?
The town of Calipatria is a small, working-class farming community on the north end of Imperial County. One main street, one dollar store, surrounded by acres of fields. It's a sleepy place. But there's a chance that could all change in the coming years.
We see this as one of the greatest economic opportunities of our lifetime, and we want California to dominate in this space.
That's California Governor Gavin Newsom. He was in town last year to hold a press conference in front of a new lithium plant, under construction just a few miles west of Calipatria. Recent studies have found that the Imperial Valley is home to huge amounts of lithium, a key element in electric car batteries and other technology. And demand is soaring around the world as countries like the U.S. fight to get gas-powered cars off the road and slow climate change. Newsom and other officials say the industry could transform Calipatria and other local communities with new jobs and tax dollars.
100 cents of the dollar, we want to go back to the community, 80% specifically to the community and economic development opportunities, and then 20% to the Salton Sea. That's never happened before. So that's the commitment.
It was a big deal. At the same time, though, some Imperial County residents wonder how seriously to take those claims. Officials have made big claims about renewable energies in the past, like geothermal and solar. Michael Llewellyn serves on Calipatria's City Council.
I'm excited. I'm optimistic. But there are still those thoughts, what if lithium doesn't come?
But even though the county's lithium industry is in its very early stages, experts say things could be different this time. For one, the momentum around it is strong. Right now, 3 energy companies are planning extraction plants at the north end of the county, and the state has thrown its full weight behind those projects. If the companies hire local residents for jobs in those plants, that's one of the most direct ways the region will benefit. Christelle Koloff is the Associate Director of the Government Finance Research Center at the University of Illinois, Chicago.
They can easily say, let's make sure that labor is local. If there are needs to upskill the labor, if they don't have the skills necessary, let's do an economic development initiatives to try to get them the skills that are needed.
Another way communities could benefit is through the statewide lithium extraction tax, a law that was passed in 2022. That tax requires all lithium producers in California to pay out between $400 and $800 into a statewide fund for each ton of lithium they pull out of the ground, 80% of which goes back to the counties where that lithium came from. In Imperial County, officials would be required to set aside almost a third of those tax dollars for a number of frontline communities, including Calipatria. A portion of money from the statewide fund would also go towards restoring the toxic Salton Sea. Llewellyn says these benefits would go a long way towards things like the town's crumbling sewage system and its parks and schools.
I can't speak for Brawley, I can't speak for El Centro or Imperial, but every city has these issues that need to be addressed ASAP, and I believe the lithium will help us with that.
Still, experts warn that those benefits are not a sure thing yet.
None of the companies are developing that lithium extraction yet.
Chris Benner is a professor of environmental studies and sociology at UC Santa Cruz. He says it's important to remember that no one has actually started pulling lithium out of the ground at industrial levels.
They broke ground in January on their new geothermal plant that will have then lithium extraction connected to it. But they're still trying to get all the financial investment they need to build out that full plant.
The lithium companies with plans in Imperial County also haven't signed any binding commitments to offer well-paid jobs or focus on hiring local residents. That lithium extraction tax, too, is also in jeopardy. In November, a California ballot measure that's targeting many state taxes could wipe it out, forcing lawmakers and local communities to start from scratch. Also, in the longer term, most of the jobs will come after the lithium is extracted, when factories turn the mineral into batteries and electric cars. That could be a big opportunity for Imperial County, but it's also a big open question.
So less than 0.5% of all jobs in the full supply chain are in lithium extraction. So, if we want to keep our eyes on the ball, like that biggest ball is in the electric vehicle and battery manufacturing, not so much in extraction.
Back in Calipatria, Llewellyn says he understands that those questions are significant. Still, he's hopeful about everything that's happened so far.
I think this will be the time that everything's done right, not just for Calipatria or Nyland, but for the entire county.
But Llewellyn also feels the weight of this moment for the region. Calipatria, he says, can't afford another broken promise. Corey Suzuki, KPBS News.
Every Friday, you can get our most popular stories of the week. It's one of the newsletters offered by KPBS. We have many others, including daily headlines, KPBS arts, streaming picks, and our North County focus. Go to kpbs.org and look for the newsletters section at the top of the screen, and from there you can sign up with your email address. Every year, KPBS partners with local libraries for One Book, One San Diego. It's a collaboration to celebrate literacy for adults, teens, kids, and Spanish language readers. And just recently, we announced our selections for the upcoming year. Here is more on that announcement and a few words from the authors.
KPBS and our community partners celebrate 18 years of One Book, One San Diego. We're excited to announce the 2024 selections. For adults in English and Spanish, New York Times bestseller Know My Name, a memoir by Chanel Miller.
I'm so honored to be participating in One Book, One San Diego this fall. This book is about sexual assault and my journey through the criminal justice system and how isolating and oppressive that process was. But it's also about how over time there was this fire building in me and how I was learning to articulate what was happening and learning to absorb the love and support of the people around me. I went from the anonymous Emily Doe in the courtroom to eventually coming forward to reveal my name, Chanel Miller. So ultimately, it's an exciting and empowering story. I think the fact that San Diego has selected it as a citywide read signals to all survivors that there's no shame in talking about any of this, and we are all here to help each other out. So I can't wait to meet you all in the fall. Pick up a copy of Know My Name, and I will see you soon. Bye.
For tweens and teens, award-winning graphic memoir, Victory, Stand, Raising My Fist for Justice by Tommy Smith, Derek Barnes, and Dawood Anyabwile.
Thank you, One Book, One San Diego, for choosing this selection. I'm so honored because now this book is amongst a list of other classic books like Chinese Born American, the crossover When the Stars Are Scattered, and book one of the March series on the life and legacy of Congressman John Lewis. So thank you so very much. I wrote this book because I feel like this man is the living epitome of justice, bravery, and fighting for what's right. And he essentially gave his career and his life to protest racism and the mistreatment of Black people in this country. And so I'm forever indebted to him. And I think this book is a cool read for young people because he didn't come from a life of privilege. He didn't come from people with money. He didn't come from a family of activists. I always describe him as just a country boy from Texas who used his God-given ability to stand up for what's right, because when we know better, we do better. Again, thank you to everyone at One Book, One San Diego, everyone at the San Diego Public Library, the San Diego County Library. I love librarians. I appreciate y'all so much, and I'll see y'all in the fall, San Diego. Peace.
And our picture book for kids in English and Spanish, Barrio Rising, from author and San Diego native Maria Dolores Aguila and illustrator Magdalena Mora.
Illustrator Magdalena Mora and I are thrilled to be the children's selection for One Book, One San Diego.
La ilustradora Magdalena Mora, el traductor David Bowles y yo estamos muy emocionados de ser el título infantil para One Book, One San Diego. This book was inspired on how over 50 years ago, the people of Barrio Logan came together to fight for a park. Este libro se inspiró en cómo hace más de 50 años la gente de Barrio Logan se unió para luchar por un parque. Being part of One Book, One San Diego is a dream. To think that so many readers will find this book fills my heart with so much joy. Ser parte de One Book, One San Diego es un sueño. Pensando que este cuento encontrará tantos lectores me llena el corazón de tanta alegría. If you haven't read Barrio Rising yet, I hope you will give it a chance. I can't wait to connect with the San Diego community in October. Si no has leído El Barrio se levanta, espero que no pierdas la oportunidad. No puedo esperar para conectarme con la comunidad de San Diego en octubre. Thank you so much for this honor and opportunity to serve my community. Muchísimas gracias por este honor y oportunidad de servir mi comunidad. Thank you. Gracias. Bye.
Many thanks to our One Book, One San Diego sponsors and community partners. Pick up these books at your local library or from an independent bookstore and read with us. Also, join us for community events across the region. To learn more, visit kpbs.org/onebook.
Literary and artistic expression often draws from what's happening in politics, and that is evident at the San Diego-Tijuana border. Gustavo Solis tells us how activists are working to preserve what was lost when a portion of the border wall was replaced.
For a long time, the border wall was just that, a wall. Then, artists on the Mexican side decided to make it a window into our cross-border culture. They painted colorful, vibrant murals, a blood-red heart with love written on it, a depiction of President Joe Biden making out with Donald Trump, and powerful tributes to deported veterans. Maria Teresa Fernandez is a photographer who chronicled this transformation for 25 years.
Since I started, I started kind of feeling that that object, the wall, was alive. I saw during all this time that it was changing, it was growing in length and in height. It was reproducing from 1 to 2 and in other places to 3 walls.
Then came 2023. That's when the U.S. government tore down the old wall so it could build a bigger one. And the window was shattered. Or so we thought.
We knew the Mexico side, the community on the Mexico side had invested so much love and care and energy and creativity in this site. We wanted to make sure that some of that was preserved.
That's John Fanistil. He's an activist with the group Friends of Friendship Park. And he couldn't bear to see those murals lost forever. So he called Micah Parson, CEO of the Museum of Us, with one simple question.
Would you consider having the museum try to obtain these sections of the wall before they get destroyed? And we absolutely jumped at the opportunity.
The museum spent 8 months acquiring 20 pieces of the old border wall. It was a long and complicated process that involved multiple conversations with Customs and Border Protection and the private contractor hired to dismantle the wall. Those 20 pieces are now safe in an undisclosed warehouse in the South Bay. If you look close enough and at just the right angle, you can see migrants crossing the border. And each section has small details hidden in plain sight, like tiny hearts and butterflies, even handprints. You can even tell which sections of the wall were closest to the ocean by looking at how the salty air corroded the metal beams. Fernandez, the photographer, is overjoyed to see the murals survive.
They mean a lot. They mean a lot for the history of that area.
Parsons says the history won't be locked up in a museum.
They don't belong to us. They really belong to the community. And it's the community that should come together to decide how this sort of wealth gets redistributed back into our trinational region.
Museums have a history of taking things that don't belong to them. Parsons sees this project as part of an ongoing effort to correct the mistakes of the past.
We have caused inestimable harm to indigenous communities, to other communities of color, by taking their belongings, by taking their ancestors and refusing to give them back for decades. And we've really, over the last several years, turned that corner and realized they don't belong to us as an institution. They belong back into the community.
Fana still says that Friends of Friendship Park, the Museum of Us, and other community stakeholders will spend the next year figuring out where and how to display these unique artifacts.
Perhaps there will be sites in the public, either on either side of the border, where one or more of these sections of wall might be displayed. Perhaps there might be a traveling site with a section or two of the wall able to visit different locations. We don't know. These are all possibilities.
They envision a truly genuine tri-national effort involving people from San Diego, Tijuana, and Kumeyaay Nation. Brandon Linton is a cultural consultant and member of the Kumeyaay.
Before there was a U.S.-Mexico, there was us, the Kumeyaay people. And so we originally inhabited the area from generally down around the Ensenada area up to Capistrano area.
And Friendship Park is right in the middle of that area.
So the U.S.-Mexico border from its conception split our homeland virtually in half.
Linton says the border wall has had a devastating impact on the Kumeyaay people. It has separated them for generations.
I think that this project is a great way to bring attention to that and bring some light to those issues of people that need to move back and forth across that border.
A way to reopen the window. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
And find more from the KPBS Newsroom on YouTube. That is where we post new content daily and live stream KPBS Evening Edition weeknights at 5. We hope that you enjoyed this look at KPBS News this week. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Thanks for joining us.